Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Caroline to speak on the 50th anniversary, and I'm very grateful, and I'm sure you'll all be very interested. So I'll go back to the kitchen.
Oh,
thank you.
I'll come with you. First of all, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Riga.
You just turned up now.
It's a great honour for me to be here today. I feel very humbled. The small things that I've done in Northampton in comparison to others is, well, it's small. But thank you very, very much for inviting me here today. Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say, what I'd like to share with you. That's all right, darling. There's an old, very old Japanese poem. It goes like this. It says, "Underneath the cherry trees, there are no strangers." Well, I've stolen that poem and I've adapted it for Tibetans. And I'd like to say today that underneath the Tibetan flag, there are no strangers, just a wonderful community of people bonded together for one reason only: to free Tibet, to bring peace to a nation that for 55 years has suffered far too long. So last Tuesday, the 4th of March, there was a wonderful event. There were over 100 people arrived at Northampton Guildhall, and I always expect nobody, but there was 100 people. There was the mayor and mayoress, there was the director of the council, there was Lord Northampton, even made a guest appearance, but best of all was your very one and only Thubten Sanda. He was there, and that made the occasion incredibly special for every single person there. And Anglia Television was there, and Thubten talked on Anglia Television. You probably can't see these, but this is the crowd, I don't know if anyone can see, that's one of the photographs inside.
You want something to hold it?
Okay, thank you. And this is outside.
Shall I show them that?
It's there. And this is outside raising the flag. So, as I was arranging this event, it takes a lot of time and a lot of worry, and I don't do it easily. I worry constantly. And it got to the point where I'd nearly finished arranging it, and a friend, I think they were a friend, they said to me, "Why are you doing it? 15 years you've been raising that flag. Don't you think you should stop now and give up?" So I went quite silent, and I said, "His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people have spent 55 years never giving up. No, I don't think we can give up."
China's not giving up.
But the person kept on at me, and he said, "Well, why do you do it? What's in it for you? Why do you do it?" And I thought about that, and I said, "I do it because I can, because we can here. If I was in Tibet and I tried to fly this flag and I tried to have a picture of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I'd be arrested, I'd be imprisoned, tortured, and maybe shot." It didn't seem to deter him because he still went on and on. So shall I tell you what I did? Not very Buddhist. I went, "Oh, shut up." And that's how I started thinking about, well, how on earth did I get here? Because I can honestly say, and I'm really apologising for this because I'm ashamed of myself, that for 52 years, 52, I hadn't even heard of Tibet. Shameful. I didn't know who His Holiness the Dalai Lama was. 52 years I lived like that. That's just incredible to me now. And I just thought about it, and I thought, well, how did I? And I don't know if anybody here believes this, but it's my belief that when we're born, our life is mapped out. And because I'm so old, I can look back and I can prove that it's mapped out. And then the signposts, and we miss those signposts sometimes. And we miss them probably because we're not ready. And I had to live a very, very strange life before I got to 52 and found I was able to support the Tibetan cause, which I have to tell you now, I have benefited far more than any Tibetan person has ever benefited from what I've done. It's actually saved my life and it saved my sanity. Now, I'll keep this very brief, I'm going to go from birth to 70 very quickly, and I'll miss some fascinating stories out, sadly. I'm not very proud of them. But, is that okay? Can I have a drink of water, please? No, it's all right, I've got some. Thank you. So, I was born in 1943, and the war is on. And I was born into my grandparents' house, and my father was in the war in the Navy. My mother was very young, and she didn't want to be married to my father. So she went back onto the stage when I was born, left me with my grandparents, and my father I never met. He didn't exist. Now as a baby, you know, you're not bothered, are you, as a baby? Only later was I bothered. But it was a great grounding, and I know the Buddha would say, what a lesson in impermanence and change and all the things that the Buddha teaches, because that household, it was a very small little home with my grandparents, And it was full of grief and suffering, which is what I've learned since at Rigpa, that life is suffering. And my grandmother's son, Fred, was killed. He was in a ship, it was torpedoed 3 months before I was born. So I'm born into a house of grief. A few years before that, her little son Harry had drowned in the canal. He was 5. A few years before that, Lily had died of consumption, age 11. So I know, though I didn't know it, I was living within this household of grief and loss and suffering. And I think it was very good for me, because it was when I got older that I looked back and saw, wow, how did my grandmother bring me up with all this suffering and loss? Now we're coming to a little clue about Tibet. Very little. I reach 16. I'm 16, I'm working, I'm away in a theatre, singing and dancing, and I get a phone call. And my grandmother has died. This is 1959, a very important year for Tibet, when His Holiness the Dalai Lama flees, leaves everything, loses everything, and the Tibetan people lose everything. Now, of course, I don't know this. I'm 16, and all I'm looking for is boys, and singing and dancing. But when that show finished, I lost everything, because what happened was my mother appeared, one of her fleeting visits. It was just a rented house we had. She took my grandfather, I'm still away. She got rid of every single thing in my home, nothing. And so when this show finished, I didn't have a home. So I can really connect somehow. In 1959, I lost my home and everything, age 16. So you're still quite brave at 16. Fear hadn't set in, and I came to London, got a little tiny bed-sitter, got a wonderful job at the Victoria Palace in Victoria in a show, and life went on. Now we're going to make another leap to 30. At 30, once again, I lose everything. I have a terrible divorce case, a custody case where I nearly lose my daughter, and I lose my home. And I'm sort of rock bottom because I don't have any work now, and things are just terrible. But once again, out of suffering, as the Buddha would say, came an incredible chance. A chance to work with people with learning disabilities and Down syndrome instead of being in the theatre. And that I've done for 40 years now. So that was a blessing. Age 39, Tibet appears, but not in the form of a human being. I'm still in London and I'm walking down the street and I see a dog. And I am mad about dogs. But this dog, my heart wouldn't stop beating so fast, and I had to stop and say to the woman, "What's that dog?" And she said, "It's a Lhasa Apsu." She didn't say Tibetan. That word didn't come in then at 39. A Lhasa Apsu. So I made a mental note. I've got to have that dog. And when I moved to Northampton, which I had to move to Northampton, because remember they were going to fly the flag, didn't know that at the time, moved to Northampton to a farmhouse, and it's a wonderful day centre for people with learning disabilities now. We've been there 30 years, and I'd been there a few months when I thought, that dog, that's that absolute dog. And I opened the local paper, and it was quite amazing, because on the very day I opened it, there were puppies for sale. My daughter was still at home, and off we went, and we came home with Ben, a Lhasa Apsu puppy. Still didn't know that Ben was Tibetan. A bit slow. And within that year, I had 4. I had to go out and get more, so I had 4 Tibetan Lhasa Apsu dogs. And still, I didn't know. And when I look back, I know that in the kitchen I bought a book on Lhasa Apsus, and if I'd have looked at that book at the back, it was all about Tibet, which I found out later. And so life went on. And the next jump is to a very, very bad time in my life, 47. Now, I don't know how it happened, because I wasn't depressed, but I don't know how it happened, but I ended up completely catatonic. I couldn't speak. I couldn't read, I couldn't function, I was hospitalised. and I could do absolutely nothing. I might as well have been dead, because it was just like a shell. There was nothing with me, and I wanted to die. And it took a long, long time to recover from this situation. As I recovered, I then went into complete 24-hour. If anyone's ever had a panic attack, I had them for 24 hours a day where I couldn't even sit on the bed because I couldn't sleep. And then I got over that, and that was a great lesson. A great lesson in loss, because I lost myself. A wonderful John here actually held everything together for me while I went through this time, so John knows very well how it happened. And still I haven't found Tibet, except for the dogs. I recovered, but life would never be the same. Something felt wrong. I felt like I needed a spiritual connection with something. So I got to 52 now, we're 52, we're nearly there, and a friend said to me, she said, "You've got such a crazy mind," she said, "you need meditation classes." So, And I opened that same local paper, amazing, that same paper that night, and there was meditation classes. So off I trot to the Quaker Hall, and the board outside says Tibetan Buddhist meditation. Still, anyway, I went. I wasn't that keen. You'll know why in a minute. I wasn't keen on the atmosphere, and I went quite a few times. I thought, this doesn't feel right. But what it did, because it said Tibetan, it pointed me in a direction. Went and bought His Holiness the Dalai Lama's life story. And wow, did I wake up. It was like, how could I have lived all these years and not known this, and have dogs for 15 years that come from Tibet and not know what's happened to a nation, to a country? So of course, I did what everyone would do. Joined Free Tibet, joined the Tibet Foundation with Riga, joined the Tibet Society, and had my badge. And then I made my way back to this meditation group and started saying, have you heard about Tibet? Do you know this? Do you know that? And I got frozen out completely. They wouldn't speak to me. And I thought, I knew there was something strange about these people. And then I found out, but I didn't know at the time what it meant, but I certainly know now, that they were the Shugden group. And they are so big in Northampton. They have a huge place in Northampton. I'm a wonder that they haven't come to the Guildhall and attacked me when I'm there flying the flag. But I have to thank them, because without me going to their meditation group, I would never have found the Tibetan cause. And I can honestly say, it's kept me sane, it's kept me going on times when I really, really get quite despairing of life. I think of Tibet, I think of Riga, all the people I've met, and that's it, we have to keep going. So, have I got there? Just a second. Have I got any years left? 3 years. So 15 years ago, how old am I? Am I 52? I'm friends with the mayor, and obviously I'm reading all the stuff that Free Tibet gives out and everybody, and I asked the mayor, how about flying the flag on the Guildhall? So he trotted off to the councillors, and they didn't really want to. They really didn't. This is 15 years ago. And but he kept on. He's a great guy, and they agreed. But so we were outside 15 years ago with just a few friends, but we had really great papers then, daily papers locally, which they've all gone now, they're once a week, and they did incredible coverage. So that went off to the Chinese government and to the British government, and that's really how it began. And gradually, somehow, I won't tell you all that now, so it'll take too long, we sneaked in and got a room, then we got a bigger room, and the pictures you've seen last Tuesday, it was full and it was a wonderful occasion, but I just wish it could make a bigger difference. Last Tuesday, I'd just like to share this with you because it means a lot to me. And I've also got another confession to make, Riga, another apology. When you phoned me, and I was rushing out, and then I came back, and though I knew there was a Tibetan Women's Day, I never knew of what had happened. How can I have done that? I'd always focused on the 10th of March. When I went online and found the incredible story, I was just amazed that I didn't know it, and I apologise for that. I hope I've made up for it. And what I did last Tuesday was share just a little bit. I presume, I don't know if anyone knows Amar Adi, the voice that remembers. Well, when I read her story, I'm ashamed that I didn't know it before. But strangely enough, John ordered the book for me online because I saw it, and then I found it. I'd had it for years on my bookshelf. Hadn't read it. Reading it now. And so what I shared last Tuesday was her story, just a little bit of it. And Amar Adi was 26. Her husband had been poisoned, they felt, because part of the resistance that it was murder, but they couldn't prove anything. And her sister had already been dragged away and publicly executed. And Amar Adi at 26 is alone, she's in a tent. She has a 1-year-old baby girl, Tashi, who's sleeping. She's dressing Chimmy. Her little boy was 3 years old. And she hears dogs barking, and she hears the sound. She hears the sound of the soldiers coming, and she knows they're coming for her. I can't imagine that situation. I can't imagine the fear. In fact, if I think about it, I feel full of fear myself. And she fights and struggles not to be taken from her children, but we all know that's not going to happen. And little Chimmy is hanging on her leg, and they just kick him to one side. And Amar Adi in the book says that the baby girl woke up, and she started laughing. And as she's being dragged away, Amar says she thinks it was a game that she saw. And over 20 years go by, and she languishes in one prison after another, tortured, starved, but never gives up hope. And when she's finally released and she goes to try and find her family, she finds a grown-up daughter, but they don't even know each other. And she keeps asking, where's Chimmy? Where's Chimmy? And no one wants to tell her. And eventually, they do. And they say, little Chimmy lost his mind. He went crazy. No one could contain him. If they tried to grab him, he bit them. And as they were doing this, they just said he was insane, and he slipped and he fell into that river that was near the tent and was lost. When I think of freeing Tibet now, when I think of Tibet and what we're doing, I don't think of a big word, a big nation. I think of Chimmy, his mummy, daddy, all separate beings, children, babies. That's what we're here for. That's why people like you and I do what we do for Tibet. It's about little Chimmy, and for my whole life I've held my grandmother's little boy Harry, because there was this wonderful picture of him on the wall, in my head and in my heart. There's not one day I don't think of grandmother's little Harry who drowned. And now I feel I'm in good company, or he's in good company. Because in my heart I've now got Chimmy with Harry. Until the day I die, I will think of them every day. And I'm honoured to hold them in my heart. I hope you'll remember Chimmy, because that's why we're here, really. I'm coming to the end, and what we did at the Guildhall was this wonderful piece of music. You might know it. It's from Warhorse, and it's called Only Remembered for What We Have Done. And as Amar Adi's book is The Voice That Remembers. And really remembering is why we're here today, isn't it? We're remembering, we're never going to forget. And we won't go away until something good happens. And this particular song, John. Got to do that, John. On Tuesday, last Tuesday, I felt it was for the Tibetans, the young men and women that are setting themselves on fire. I felt, yes, you'll be remembered for what you have done, because you're doing it for Tibet, you're doing it to give Tibet a voice. Sadly, the people that really matter aren't listening, but we are. But today, only remembered for what we have done. I think it applies to everybody here. And everybody
fading away like the stars in the morning.
What's your song? Anyway, before John plays it, it's for you. And it's for everybody all over the world that stands up when something is so very, very wrong. And the words, before we play it, it's about when we die. Buddhism is all about that, impermanence and death. And it says, fading away like the stars in the morning, losing their light in the glorious sun. Thus would we pass from this earth and its toiling, only remembered for what we have done. Thank you.
Fading away like the stars in the morning, losing their light in the glorious sun. Thus would we pass from this earth and its toiling, only remembered for what we have done. Only remembered. Only remembered, only remembered for what we have done. Thus would we pass from this earth and its toiling, only remembered for what we have done. Horses and men, ploughshares and traces, the line on the land and the paths of the sun. Season by season we mark nature's graces, only remembered for what we have done. Only remembered. Only remembered, only remembered for what we have done. Season by season we mark nature's graces, only remembered for what we have done.
Tashi did it. For you. Oh, well, me. For you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you all enjoyed the speech. And, well, I heard a bit of it, but it's very interesting. And I'm really grateful for coming all the way from Northumberland to speak on this day. And I'd like to give you just a little token of thing on behalf of the Women's Association. This is the Green Tara tanker, which just to express our gratitude for being the support of Tibet cause and flying the flag for us all these years, and I hope you will continue to do so. And I'm
Just when I was going to retire.
no, you can't retire yet. Anyway, this is
Oh, wow.
just to express
Oh, it's
our
wonderful.
gratitude.
Oh.
I can read it. On behalf of the UK Tobacco Women's Association, we would like to offer you the Tanka of Great Dara to express our deep gratitude for your heartfelt support for the cause of Tibet. We are sure you will continue to support the cause and apply the flag for Tibet. We would like to thank you also for speaking on the 25th anniversary of the Tibetan Women's International Uprising Day. With love and affection, Riga, on behalf of UK Tibetan Women's Association. I'm sorry, anybody has any questions to answer, please do ask, because I have to get back into the kitchen.
Ask me how I got out of the bedroom.
Well, I haven't got any, just to thank you.
Sorry.
I haven't got any questions, but I would like to thank you for supporting Tibet in your Facebook. What I saw you, or what I know through the Facebook, I think, and today is the first time I meet you. And your support for Tibet has been relentless. It's wonderful, and you attract a lot of people in Northampton, in spite of those guys, shooting guys that are there. I mean, it's wonderful, and I hope you will continue. And thank you very much. And I think through the Facebook, Northampton has become famous for the Tibetans. Yes.
I thought it was only my donkey that was famous on Facebook.
What kind of town it is? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to thank you as well, because I run Free Tibet in Newport. Group is actually not true, there's only me.
Yeah, that's what.
But group sounds better. I hope more people will join. But what I see you doing on Facebook is so inspiring. And on the bad days, when I'm sat in the ring giving out leaflets and then I see people throw them on the floor, and I think, you get days where you think, and then I see what you do, and it makes me keep going. It helps.
It works both ways.
It
Because
helps.
me seeing you keeps me going. So,
Well, we'll have to both keep going then.
God, you're right.
Yes.
Squash up just a little bit more.
I'm still being quiet.
Everyone's smile.